You know that feeling when you get to the end of your workday and that is it? Like you are done. But the kids need to be fed, and the house needs to be cleaned, and the laundry needs to be folded, and you barely even have the energy to go to bed. Never mind focus on yourself or a hobby or basically anything that involves any form of movement or thought. Well, you can change that. Let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura, and a heads up that this is not going to be eat good food and get better sleep. That is like a different video for a different time. I know that right now you are exhausted. Ironically, even though I am recording this video, I am exhausted. But over the years, I have developed some strategies so that this is not a constant state. It is not like an ongoing thing. Because I used to be like that. I used to come home from work and basically just collapse on the couch. The TV would go on and that was it. That was me. That was me every evening. That was me every weekend. Every minute of every weekend. My surroundings were a mess. Most of my food came from the microwave. I've actually set fire to my microwave trying to reheat a cookie. RIP microwave. Just a little FYI for you, but 30 seconds is too long. RIP chocolate chip cookie. But I just, during those times I could not bear the thought of going somewhere or meeting up with someone or just doing anything. Honestly, it was all I could do. Like, it took all of my energy just to drag myself to work. And a big thing that I started to notice, and pens at the ready because this is where we dive in, it was that once I sat down, that was it. I was not getting back up again unless it was to go to bed. And maybe you have noticed that too, that once you sit down, you switch off. And I'm definitely not saying that you should never rest, that you should always be on the go, but try and do something before you sit down. That could be, putting away your bag and your coat, could be feeding the dog, making a start on dinner, maybe folding some clothes or putting on a wash load, tidying up one small area, whatever it may be, just one small thing. Because I think the thing that a lot of us do is we sit down for a few minutes and then we get up and we make a start on dinner, and then we'll sit down and have a little bit of a rest, and then we get back up and serve dinner, and then we're sitting down again to eat dinner, and then we're back up, and we're just this up and down yo-yo all the time, which means we're not actually properly resting. So try and do those things, while you're up, get as much as you can done, and then when you do sit, make sure that you are properly resting, that you're not just sitting down for a few minutes before you build up the motivation to get up again and go do one little thing and then sit back down again. Do everything and then sit down and properly rest. Leading on from that then, I want you to start thinking about slowing down, learning to slow down, just do things at a slower pace, because I think sometimes we get really stressed out about things, and what happens then is that we start to work frantically. What we should be doing is just, taking some deep breaths, trying to think rationally and logically and only focusing on the next thing that we have to do, like the thing that's in front of us. It is so mentally draining to be stressed out and to be frantic. So let me give you an example. If you have to walk somewhere and you have 5 minutes to get there, it's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but you just get down to it, you put on your walking shoes and away you go. Maybe you have an appointment or something. You may, be a little bit out of breath when you get there. You may be a little bit sweaty, but you got there. You may even be a minute or two late, but you got there. Now think about that exact same situation. You need to get somewhere in 5 minutes, but your brain is racing. You are freaking out. You're stressing out. You keep telling yourself you're going to be late. You keep, getting angry at all the people who are in your way or walking too slowly, and you're just constantly berating yourself for being late, for, having to be in a hurry and having to rush. And it's just this constant stream. And then by the time you actually get there, you are much more drained because you are also mentally drained. You know, you're a little bit out of breath, you're a little bit sweaty, but you're also just so when you are doing things, just try to focus on the thing that is in front of you and just getting that done, and try not to let those thoughts and that like frantic action type feeling take over. A great way then to do this is to plan your days in advance. That is how you are going to know what you should be doing, because again, if you sit down and you don't know what you should be doing next, and maybe you're on a bit of a time crunch, again, it's very easy for those stressful, frantic thoughts to kick in and for you to get into that cycle, that frantic cycle all over again, and feel frazzled and then drained. Plan your day so that you know exactly what you should be doing next, and everything just follows a logical order. What I like to do is kind of meditate on it or visualize on it, or basically just give myself kind of a mental rundown of how I want the day to go. And I usually do this before I go to sleep at night. So I'll read for a little bit, and then I will do like a mental rundown of how that day went, and then I will try and do a mental rundown of how I want the next, like the following day to go. And what that does is it just helps to build up a picture for me, so that before the day even happens, before it even starts, I already know what I should be doing, in what order I should be doing it, and I just have it all laid out for myself step by step. I will put in a little caveat here, because this is something that when I started doing this was a mistake that I made, and that is that you need to be realistic with your time. My tendency was to think, and I still do it sometimes, the tendency is to think that tomorrow you will be your most productive self. Tomorrow you will be full of energy, there will be no distractions, and you will not have any interruptions, nothing unexpected will crop up. We tend to plan for our perfect days rather than planning for what our days actually look like. So be realistic, build in buffer times, build in breaks, allow for, unexpected things to happen. Don't pack your day, because that is what is going to lead to that frantic feeling. When you get to the day and inevitably those distractions do happen and those unexpected things do crop up and the kids do interrupt you, you will already have that little bit of breathing space in your schedule. The next thing I want to talk about then, and this is something that I have mentioned before, but I've actually never really gone into it in this much detail, because there is some kind of nuance to it and it is a little bit more complicated than I have previously delved into. So if you've heard me talk about this before, stick with me, because I am actually going to break it down much more than I normally do. And that is to alternate your tasks, because different types of tasks take different types of energy. Essentially, this is kind of, again, just this broad overview, but essentially there are two types of energy. There is physical energy and there is mental energy, and different types of tasks will require different amounts of each. Most tasks will require some mix of the two, but I think in general there are certain tasks that will require a lot more of one type of energy than the other. So for example, some physical tasks, things that are mainly physically draining, could be, running. They could be scrubbing your tub, doing chores, things like that around the house, cleaning, deep cleaning. They could be running around after your kids. A lot of those things are very physically demanding, but in terms of mental effort, that can be a little bit on the lower side. For the most part, you can switch off your brain a little bit. And then obviously there are some tasks that are very mentally draining, research, studying, things like that, but don't require a huge amount of physical energy. So you may be sitting down at a desk all day. So try and alternate those. Look at your to-do list and try and figure out which are the tasks that require a lot of physical energy and which are the tasks that require a lot of mental energy, and try and alternate those, because the reality is, generally, there are some cases where this is not true, but generally your battery, so you have two different types of batteries if you think about it that way. You have a body battery and you have a brain battery, and they don't always deplete at exactly the same rate. Like I said, there may be some tasks where mentally you're only depleting a little bit of your battery, but physically your battery can be running very low, and then vice versa. So try and alternate those so that After you have done a physical task, one that is very physically demanding, you are then resting physically, but you are engaging in a task that is mentally more demanding, so that your physical battery, your body battery, can be recharging as your brain battery is starting to deplete a little bit. So try and have that alternate, because if you are just constantly pushing and depleting your body battery, shall we say, physically you are going to be exhausted, but mentally you are still going to be alert. And that is why so many of us go to bed at the end of the day after we have been racing around thinking that we are exhausted, and then we lie down and our brain will not stop talking to us. And that's because our bodies may be tired, but our brains are still good to go. So look at your tasks in terms of how much energy and what type of energy they are requiring, and make sure that you are giving yourself the breaks that you need to top up whichever battery has been depleted. Now, like I said, there are some tasks that will require that both of them drain pretty quickly, and in that case you're just going to need to take a complete break. But if you start to look at which tasks require which type of energy, by alternating them, you will be letting one recharge while you are still utilizing the other battery. You won't constantly be running down one battery just over and over and over again, or running it right down until it is completely empty. Alternate them and you will find that you have much more energy throughout the day. Now, there are some, like I said at the beginning, there are some kind of nuances, so I want to go into those now. I've never addressed this before, but when I talk about body battery or body energy, there are some things where it's not necessarily a physical task that can be draining your body battery. So sometimes we think, running around all day, doing exercise, we think of those things as draining our physical batteries. But there are other things that don't require movement that can still drain your body battery. Let me give you 2 examples. And the first one, and I experienced this, is you feel physically tired even though you have not been running around and you can't figure out why. And it is sometimes because your body is fighting off some illness, a virus, an infection, something like that. I generally always know when I am about to get sick or when I am kind of at the beginning stages of a sickness, because I just feel physically very drained, even though I haven't been doing that much physical activity. So that is something to consider when you are thinking about your body's battery. Don't just think of it in terms of your actual physical movement and activity. Another example is when you're pregnant. Women, particularly in the first trimester, are very, very tired, even though they're not moving around all that much, or certainly not more than usual. And it's because their bodies are so busy internally building a new human being. So even though you may not be physically active, there may still things be going on internally that are causing your body to work harder than it might normally. And this can tie in. So remember when I gave you the example of somebody walking and somebody just walking, just using kind of physical energy, but then also somebody who's walking and is feeling stressed out. That stress reaction can also cause a physical reaction. So your heart can beat a little bit faster. And that causes, blood starts to pump a lot quicker. So again, your body is using up more energy than it normally would. So those are just some things to consider in terms of physical energy. That just because you are not physically active and physically moving doesn't necessarily mean that you are not using physical energy. So do take that into account as well when you are looking at your task list and trying to balance things. On the brain side then, again, obviously there are some tasks where you require a lot of mental energy, like studying, like researching, maybe you're writing, things like that. They just require a lot of mental focus and concentration. But there are other things, again, like with the body, there are other things that can have an impact on that. And one of those, something that I have experienced very recently, something that I'm currently experiencing, is emotional drainage. There are things that we can experience that will just drain our energy because we are so emotional, we are upset, we are, devastated, we are just going through a tough time, whatever it may be, stressed out, anxiety. All of those things can take a toll on you mentally and drain your mental, like your your brain battery, even though, again, you may not be necessarily focusing on something really difficult or trying to wrap your brain around something, but you can still have something that is depleting that battery. I know for me, anytime that I am very upset or whatever, and I cry, you know, when you have one of those like sobs, just one of those really good cries, at the end of it, I am always exhausted. I find myself yawning. I just need to lie down and have a nap. And it's because I am just mentally, emotionally, completely drained and depleted. So again, when you are thinking in terms of physical and mental energy, just know that there are other factors that come into play as well. And they may not necessarily be the most obvious ones. Like I said, then you should be, when you're conscious of, you know, which battery is depleting and, you know, the rate at which they're depleting, that will also help you to build in more breaks and the right type of breaks into your day. Now, if you do find that you are sitting down all day, staring at a screen maybe, and your eyes are starting to droop, this is something that happens to me on a very regular basis, then what can help is to actually get up and move around for a few minutes. Again, it comes back to that thing where you may actually only be depleting one of your batteries. You may feel that you are, you know, that you need a rest, you need a break, you need to sleep, you need a nap, whatever it may be. But in actual fact, your body may actually be fine. It may still be ready to go. You may have already experienced this. I know I have, in the sense that you may get to the end of a day, like it may be the evening, and you just feel exhausted. You feel completely wiped out, and you think to yourself, okay, I definitely need an early night. So you get up, you get yourself ready for bed, you know, you get undressed, put on your pajamas, brush your teeth, do all of that stuff, go to the bathroom, and then you're wide awake. And it's because your batteries weren't actually depleted. You were just, you know, tired from doing one type of thing. So getting up and moving around for a few minutes will tell you pretty quickly whether or not you actually need to completely rest, whether both your batteries are running low, or whether you actually just need to let one battery recharge. It may be a simple matter that your body has just kind of gone into energy saving mode, that it's just kind of, you know, like put on its screensaver sort of, and is conserving energy rather than you actually needing to completely shut down. Now, for the next few weeks, I am going to be talking about ways that you can stop wasting your time, you know, things to stop doing so that you can conserve more of your energy. I'm going to be talking about ways that you can get better sleep, etc., all of those sorts of things. I will not be talking about, you know, different good foods that you should eat, because honestly, sometimes I eat sour gummy bears for breakfast. So when it comes to nutrition, I am not your girl. Also not your girl when it comes to weight loss, because I have definitely packed on the COVID-19 and then some. But subscribe for all of the rest of that good stuff. I help you to streamline your space and your schedule so that you can find more of that time and energy to focus on the things that matter the most to you. Oh, and here's a little bonus tip for you. Take shortcuts. I only straightened the front of my hair for this video. The back of it, it's just a law unto itself. You may have seen little sneak peeks of it as I turned around, but yeah, it's just totally fine to half-ass stuff.